some broadcasts vanish almost as quickly as they appear. A single airing, a late-night time slot, a moment of confusion, and then silence. No reruns, no announcements. Only the faint memory of something that felt too real, too strange, or too unsettling for television to carry again. Across several decades, networks released a handful of sci-fi films and special reports that blurred the boundary between fiction and reality. Some imitated live news so convincingly that viewers panicked. Others portrayed futures so bleak that broadcasters hesitated to ever show them again. A few simply slipped through the cracks, lost to damaged tapes, scheduling errors, or decisions no one fully explained. But fragments survived: degraded VHS recordings, archived uploads, testimonies from people who swear they saw something different during the original broadcast. Tonight's list revisits those transmissions, the films and episodes that aired once, stirred fear or controversy, and then were quietly removed from the airwaves. They weren't just stories. They were warnings disguised as entertainment, or entertainment mistaken for warnings. Welcome to Vaulted Futures Broadcast and Erased. 1. The Outer Limits. The Architects of Fear. 1963. When The Architects of Fear aired as part of The Outer Limits in 1963, many viewers never saw the full episode. During its initial broadcast, unexpected signal disruptions struck several regions, causing scenes to dissolve into static, repeat frames, or distort characters' faces into stretched, ghost-like shapes. The episode itself told a story about scientists staging a fake alien encounter in hopes of forcing humanity to unite, transforming one of their own into a creature meant to terrify the world into peace. But what audiences remembered most wasn't the plot, it was the glitching broadcast, the missing lines of dialogue, and the sense that something was wrong both inside and outside the story. When ABC re-aired the episode a week later, the disruptions were gone, but attentive viewers noticed alterations. A missing line here, a shortened reaction shot there, one specific moment where the transformed scientist allegedly said, "They already know," became the subject of decades-long debate, since no available copy contains that version of the scene. For many who watched live in 1963, the episode felt less like fiction and more like a warning, interrupted mid-transmission, a message someone didn't fully want delivered. 2. Dark Night of the Scarecrow. 1981. When Dark Night of the Scarecrow premiered on CBS in 1981, it was intended as a simple made-for-TV thriller. Instead, it delivered one of the most atmospheric and unsettling stories ever aired on network television. The film centers on the wrongful killing of a gentle, mentally challenged man and the eerie vengeance that follows. The scarecrow imagery, rural setting, and slow-burning dread gave the movie a chilling tone far beyond typical TV horror of the era. Although the broadcast was successful, CBS quietly refrained from rerunning it for years. Some claimed the film's subject matter was too intense for prime time. Others insisted that something about the original cut, especially the final scenes, felt too disturbing for repeated broadcasts. Fans who watched the premiere often recall an alternate ending that isn't present in any later release, the scarecrow turning its head ever so slightly toward the camera before fading to black. Whether this was a memory glitch or a real missing shot remains a point of debate. A revenge story wrapped in myth, preserved through whispers and aging VHS tapes. 3. The Max Headroom Broadcast Intrusion. 1987. On the 22nd of November 1987, Chicago viewers experienced one of the most bizarre incidents in television history. During a routine news segment, the signal abruptly cut away, replaced by a figure wearing a distorted Max Headroom mask. The background wobbled like corrugated metal, and the audio warped into an unintelligible mechanical slur. The intruder moved awkwardly, almost like a puppet controlled by someone unfamiliar with human motion. He babbled fragments of phrases, mocked local networks, and swung a piece of rubber, as though delivering a private joke to an audience no one else could see. After less than 2 minutes, the intrusion ended, and the regular broadcast resumed with no explanation. Investigators combed through equipment logs, transmission towers, and signal pathways, but found nothing. No suspects, no motive, no trace of where the pirate broadcast originated. Even today, the intrusion feels more like an analog ghost than a crime. Max Headroom, originally a fictional critique of media control, had suddenly appeared as a real-world disruptor, hijacking the very system he was created to parody. A broadcast that wasn't supposed to happen, performed by a person who was never found. leaving behind a mystery that still flickers across the internet. 4. Max Headroom, 20 minutes into the future, 1985. Before becoming an icon of glitchy 1980 seconds pop culture, Max Headroom existed inside a much darker origin story. 20 minutes into the future, the 1985 TV movie depicted a dystopian society where media conglomerates controlled everything, including truth, memory, and the boundaries of human identity. The film followed journalist Edison Carter as he uncovered a hidden broadcast technology, only to be grievously injured and recreated as a digital personality, Max Headroom. With his stuttering speech, distorted mannerisms, and unsettling artificial charm, Max embodied the era's fear of machines replacing human presence. The movie struck nerves, not only for its vision of surveillance and corporate manipulation, but for how plausible it all felt. News networks commodifying tragedy, television engineered to manipulate emotions, personalities reduced to marketable algorithms, the parallels were uncomfortably clear. Its impact grew even further after the real-world 1987 broadcast hijacking, when an unknown intruder used a Max Headroom mask to interrupt Chicago TV stations. Suddenly, fiction and reality overlapped in a way the film itself had warned about, a dystopian satire that accidentally spilled into real life. 5. The Starlost, 1973. The Starlost began as an ambitious vision, a sweeping sci-fi epic set aboard a massive generational starship housing the remnants of humanity. Yet the final product felt strangely hollow, as though the ideas outgrew the limitations of the production itself. Created by renowned author Harlan Ellison, the series was intended to explore philosophical questions about survival and identity. But network interference, budget issues, and technical constraints forced the show into static sets, awkward chroma key backdrops, and stilted performances. The dissonance between concept and execution created an eerie, dreamlike quality, a world that looked unfinished, almost like a simulation waiting to load. Ratings fell quickly. NBC pushed the series into a late-night slot and ended it abruptly with no proper finale. Ellison distanced himself from the project entirely, using a pseudonym to disown the broadcast version. Despite its failures, The Starlost left behind a strange legacy, a story about a drifting civilization that ended up becoming its own drifting transmission, incomplete, abandoned, and haunting for reasons that no one quite expected. 6. The Bermuda Depths, 1978. The Bermuda Depths aired late at night in 1978 and left viewers with a strange, dreamlike unease. Produced by the same studio known for heartwarming holiday specials, the film instead delivered a surreal blend of marine science fiction, folklore, and tragedy. The story follows a man returning to the islands where he lost a childhood friend, a girl who might have been human, or might have been something far older. Ghostly underwater imagery, slow pacing, and atmospheric cinematography made the movie feel less like a TV broadcast and more like a forgotten myth unfolding. ABC aired it once, then quietly removed it from circulation. Many assumed it was simply too unusual, too slow, or too difficult to categorize. Yet those who saw it live remembered it vividly, especially the haunting sea turtle sequences and the ambiguous final moments. For years, it existed only in low-quality VHS transfers traded among fans, reinforcing its reputation as a broadcast that slipped beneath the waves and never resurfaced. 7. The Quatermass Experiment, 1953. When the Quatermass Experiment first aired live on the BBC in 1953, no one expected it to become one of the earliest cases of a lost broadcast. The series followed the disturbing return of 3 astronauts from a space mission, except only one of them survives, and he begins to undergo a strange and frightening transformation. Because the episodes were transmitted live, the BBC had no system for preserving full recordings. While the later episodes were partially filmed, the crucial opening installment, the one that set the tone and introduced the mystery, vanished entirely. Only audio fragments and scattered written summaries remain. Those who watched the original airing often recall the sense of dread and tension, describing the performance of the deteriorating astronaut as uncomfortably real. Over time, rumors circulated that the footage wasn't merely lost, but intentionally destroyed due to its unsettling nature. What remains is a half-preserved legend, a foundational piece of sci-fi television whose most important moments now exist only in memory. 8. The Disappearance of Flight 4121974. Aired as a modest TV movie in 1974, The Disappearance of Flight 412 presented itself like a procedural military film rather than typical science fiction. The story follows a U.S. Air Force crew that encounters unidentified objects on radar and then mysteriously vanishes from communication. Much of the film takes place in stark, undecorated government rooms, where officers quietly panic behind closed doors. The absence of music and the minimal editing style gave the entire broadcast a dry, unsettling realism. The narrative implied that the government knew more than it admitted, and that the disappearance was only one example of a larger pattern. During the original broadcast, several local affiliates reportedly experienced mid-film technical interruptions, cutting away unexpectedly and fueling rumors that something had gone wrong with the signal itself. Though the film eventually resurfaced, the original broadcast became its own mystery, a fictional disappearance wrapped in a strangely vanished transmission. 9. The War Game, 1965. When The War Game was created in 1965, BBC executives quickly realized they had something too realistic and too terrifying to broadcast. Presented as a documentary, the film depicted the immediate aftermath of a nuclear strike on Britain, showing civil disorder, mass casualties, and the brutal realities of survival under martial law. The style was cold and clinical. Interviews felt authentic. The recreated footage looked indistinguishable from genuine newsreels. For many reviewers, the realism was so overpowering that they questioned whether audiences could emotionally withstand it. BBC quietly shelved the film, declaring it unsuitable for television. For 20 years, the public wasn't allowed to see it. Conspiracy rumors grew around its suppression. Some believed the government had pressured the BBC to hide its depiction of post-nuclear Britain because it was too close to actual predictions. When The War Game finally resurfaced decades later, viewers understood why it had been locked away. It wasn't sensational, it was honest, and that honesty was more disturbing than any fiction. 10. Alternative 31977. First broadcast in 1977, Alternative 3 appeared to be a straightforward episode of a science documentary series. Instead, viewers found themselves watching a startling exposé, claims of government plots, disappearing scientists, and a secret plan to evacuate elite individuals to Mars due to environmental collapse on Earth. Everything about the broadcast was crafted to feel authentic. Interviews, leaked documents, shaky camera footage, and even a transmission allegedly sent from the Martian surface. Because the program aired without an April Fool's disclaimer, due to scheduling delays, many people assumed it was genuine. Panic and confusion spread quickly, and phone lines were flooded with concerned calls. Although the network explained afterward that it was a hoax, the damage was done. The realism was so effective that some believe the retraction was part of the conspiracy itself. Copies circulated privately for decades, feeding rumors about what might have been hidden or accidentally revealed. A fictional investigation that looked too much like the truth and left a mark long after its single broadcast. 11. Threads, 1984. When Threads aired on BBC Two in 1984, it presented a vision of nuclear devastation so relentlessly bleak that it redefined what television was capable of. Instead of focusing on political leaders or military response, the film followed everyday citizens of Sheffield as their lives unraveled before, during, and long after a nuclear strike. The broadcast didn't rely on dramatic music or conventional storytelling. Instead, it used still images, stark narration, and disturbing realism to portray societal collapse, radiation sickness, famine, and the eventual decay of language itself. For many viewers, the experience felt like peering into a future that was not hypothetical, but inevitable. Reports circulated for years that viewers experienced insomnia, panic attacks, and long-lasting anxiety. Teachers used the film as an educational tool, while others argued it should never have aired at all. Because of its impact, Threads was rarely shown on television for a long time, adding to its reputation as a transmission too disturbing for repeated broadcast. Even now, its cold, documentary-like style haunts those who saw it live, a grim reminder of how fragile civilization can be. 12. The Day After, 1983. When ABC premiered The Day After in 1983, Its portrayal of nuclear war struck viewers with a level of realism that television had rarely approached. Presented through the eyes of ordinary Americans, the film depicted the slow, horrifying collapse of daily life after missiles fall and radiation spreads across the country. The imagery, ash-blackened skies, burning towns, hospitals overwhelmed with dying patients, was so intense that crisis hotlines nationwide had to increase staffing before and after the broadcast. Many who watched it live described the experience as traumatizing, and some communities even held public discussions afterward to help people process what they'd seen. Although ABC promoted it as an important cultural moment, the network quietly softened later releases. The original televised version aired only once in full, becoming a kind of collective nightmare, preserved mainly through home recordings and digital uploads decades later. A film meant to warn the public ended up scaring them in ways no one anticipated. Strangest, Ghostwatch, 1992. When Ghostwatch aired on BBC One in 1992, audiences expected a light Halloween special, not a broadcast that would blur the line between entertainment and genuine paranormal investigation. Styled as a live documentary, the program followed a news team exploring a supposedly haunted council house, while anchors in the studio reacted to incoming updates. As the night went on, strange noises, children's screams, and unexplained disturbances escalated on screen. What frightened viewers most wasn't the events themselves, but the show's refusal to break character. Every reporter stayed in live mode, and callers phoning into the studio, many of them actors, heightened the illusion that everything was happening in real time. Thousands believed they were witnessing a true supernatural incident unfolding as they watched. The BBC received waves of complaints, and the psychological impact was so severe that the broadcast was banned from reruns for years. Even today, people claim they saw things during the original airing that aren't present on any surviving copies: fleeting figures in dark corners, reflections that move on their own, shadows that shouldn't be there. A fictional event that felt too real to ever air again. 14. Without Warning, 1994. When Without Warning aired on CBS in 1994, it was designed to resemble a real-time news interruption, a global emergency unfolding live, with anchors scrambling to maintain control. What began as a routine broadcast quickly spiraled into a series of alarming breaking reports: mysterious meteors striking Earth, communication networks collapsing, and scientists debating whether humanity was facing its final hours. What made the experience so convincing was its commitment to the format. The film never paused for traditional storytelling. Instead, viewers saw a cascade of urgent updates, shaken field correspondence, and frantic discussions from studio experts who seemed just as confused as the audience. Even though CBS inserted disclaimers during commercial breaks, countless viewers missed them and believed the world was truly under attack. Phone lines to local news stations were overwhelmed. Some families gathered together in fear. For others, the broadcast became a strange shared memory, like a nightmare seen through the television. After the initial airing, the network kept a low profile about the film, perhaps recognizing the chaos it unintentionally stirred. Over time, Without Warning gained a cult reputation as one of the most convincing faux broadcast sci-fi events ever produced, a fictional apocalypse that many people briefly accepted as reality. 15. Special Bulletin, 1983. When Special Bulletin first appeared on NBC in 1983, many viewers didn't realize they were watching fiction. Shot with the pacing and structure of a real-time breaking news event, the broadcast followed reporters covering an escalating crisis on the Charleston waterfront, where a group of radicals claimed to possess a homemade nuclear device. What made the film so unsettling was its commitment to authenticity: shaky camera angles, distressed anchors, fragmented updates, and tense field reports that felt indistinguishable from genuine newsroom coverage. There were almost no signals that it was scripted, especially for anyone who tuned in after the initial disclaimer. As the tension built and the live feed deteriorated, many households responded as if the emergency were real. Police and fire departments received calls from frantic citizens, and NBC's local affiliates became overwhelmed by people demanding information. By the next morning, NBC issued public statements clarifying the fictional nature of the film. Despite its success, the network dramatically reduced rebroadcasts due to the public backlash. The original airing became a kind of ghost event remembered by those who lived through the panic, and preserved today only by VHS recordings and scattered uploads. A fictional film that felt more like a national emergency, and that's why it was never allowed to air freely again. Bonus: The Twilight Zone. The Encounter, 1964. Broadcast only once in 1964, The Encounter became one of the rare Twilight Zone episodes to be effectively buried for decades. The story follows two men, one a war veteran, the other a young Japanese-American trapped in an attic with an ancestral samurai sword that appears able to influence thoughts, dredge up hidden guilt, and expose painful truths. The intensity of the dialogue, combined with the supernatural undertones, made the episode feel unusually raw. CBS received immediate backlash after its premiere, and the network quietly pulled it from syndication. For over 40 years, fans could only reference memories, rumors, and scattered still images to describe an episode many weren't even sure had truly aired. When the episode finally resurfaced decades later, it was missing frames, leading to speculation that CBS had edited out problematic or disturbing moments. Some viewers who saw the original broadcast insisted the sword's reflection moved before the characters did, a detail absent from all modern releases. A story about guilt, identity, and an object that remembers more than it should, erased almost as quickly as it was shown. The transmissions we explored tonight share one thing: they didn't disappear naturally. They were pulled, buried, or quietly forgotten, yet their impact lingers decades later. Each film left behind echoes, panic phone calls, confused audiences, rumors of missing scenes, and memories that don't always match the surviving footage. They remind us how fragile the boundary is between a story and a crisis, and how easily a broadcast can be mistaken for truth. Maybe that's why these lost signals fascinate us. They're glimpses into moments when television pushed too far, felt too real, or revealed something the world wasn't ready to confront. So if you ever stumble upon a late-night broadcast that shouldn't exist, a glitching image, an old special, a voice that cuts through the static, pay attention. Some signals were never meant to vanish, and some of them eventually find their way back.